everyone,
Hello.
and welcome to a new video of the legendary Phoenix. So, in this episode, we aren't going to be doing any maps, but we are, as you can see, I've changed my skin to the scary ItScRzYplays. I don't really know.
She's got a mustache.
And today, Itstarzan will be telling scary stories. So yeah, we have some tea and cookies. Well, I have cookies. I mean, duh. I keep my cookies. Cookies are the best. Anyway, let's start with the scary stories.
All right.
What's this one called? Ooh, The Thing.
This one's called The Thing. Ted Martin and Sam Miller were good friends. They spent a lot of time together. On this particular night, they were sitting on a fence near the post office, talking about one thing and another. There was a field of turnips across the road. Suddenly, they saw something crawl out of the field and stand up. It looked like a man, but in the dark, it was hard to tell for sure. Then it was gone. But soon it appeared again. It walked halfway across the road, then it turned around and went back into the field. Then it came out a third time and started towards them. By now Ted and Sam were scared, and they had started running. But when they finally stopped, they decided that they were being foolish. They weren't sure what had scared them, so they decided to go back for a better look. Pretty soon they saw it, for it was coming to meet them. It was in black pants, a white shirt, and black suspenders. Sam said, "I'm going to touch it, and then we'll know if it's real." He walked up, and it peered into his face. It had bright, penetrating eyes sunk deep in its head. It looked like a skeleton. Ted took one look and screamed, and again he and Sam ran, but this time the skeleton followed them. When they got to Ted's house, they stood in the doorway and watched it. It stayed out of the road for a while. Then it disappeared. A year later, Ted got sick and died. Toward the end, Sam sat up with him every night. The night Ted died, Sam said he looked just like the skeleton. Boom, boom, boom.
Ooh. Gotta get more tea. Okay. Well, if you guys like that story, you're gonna like the story that I get to tell to Itstarzan. Yep. Sound effects included. Okay. Cold as clay. A farmer and a daughter, for whom he cared more than anything on earth. She fell in love with a farmhand named Jim, but the farmer did not think Jim was good enough for his daughter. To keep them apart, he sent her to live with her uncle on the other side of the country.
What a jerk.
Soon after she left, Jim got sick, and he wasted away and died.
Aw.
Everyone said he died of a broken heart. The farmer felt so guilty about Jim's death, he could not tell his daughter what had happened. She continued to think about Jim and the life they might have had together. One night, many weeks later, there was a knock on her uncle's door. When the girl opened the door, Jim was standing there. "Your father asked me to come get you," he said. "I came on his best horse." "Is there anything wrong?" she asked. "I don't know," he said. She packed a few things and they left. She rode behind him, clinging to his waist. Soon he complained of a terrible headache. "It aches something terrible," he told her. She put her hand on his forehead. "Why, you're as cold as clay," she said. And she wrapped her handkerchief around his head. They traveled so swiftly that in a few hours they reached the farm. The girl quickly dismounted and knocked on the door. Her father was startled to see her. "Didn't you send for me?" she asked. "No, I didn't," he said. She turned to Jim, but he was gone, and so was the horse. They went to the stable to look for the men. The horse was there. It was covered with sweat and trembling with fear. But there was no sign of Jim. Terrified, her father told her the truth about Jim's death. Then quickly he went to see Jim's parents. They decided to open his grave. The corpse was in his coffin, but around its head They found the girl's handkerchief.
Ooh. Creepy.
Yeah.
That's a creepy one.
Shall we read a couple more?
Yes.
You get to read The White Wolf.
The White Wolf.
Ooh.
The timber wolves around French Creek had gotten out of hand. There were so many wolves, the farmers could not stop them from killing their cattle and sheep. So the state put a bounty on them. It would pay a hunter $10 for every wolf pelt he turned in. A butcher in town named Bill Williams thought that was pretty good money. He stopped working as a butcher and started killing wolves. He got good at it. Every year he killed over 500 of them.
Oof.
And that came to more than $5,000. It was quite a bit of money in those days. After 4 or 5 years, Bill had killed so many wolves there were hardly any left in the area. So he retired, and he vowed to never harm another wolf because wolves had made him rich. Then one day a farmer reported a white wolf had killed 2 of his sheep. He'd shot at it and hit it, but the bullets didn't seem to have any effect, and soon the wolf was seen all over the countryside, killing and running. But nobody could stop it. One night it came to Bill's yard and killed his pet cow. Bill forgot about his decision to never harm another wolf. He went into town the next morning and bought a young lamb for bait. He took it out into the hills and tied it to a tree. Then he backed off about 50 yards and sat down underneath a tree. With his gun in his lap, he waited. When Bill didn't come back, his friends started looking for him, and finally they found the lamb. Still tied to the tree. It was hungry, but it was alive. Then they found Bill. He was still sitting against the other tree, but he was dead. His throat had been torn open.
Oof.
But there was no sign of his struggle. His gun hadn't been fired, and there were no tracks in the soil around him. As for the white wolf, it was never seen again.
Oof, oof, oof. Well, that's kind of violent. I am going to tell you a very spooky story. It's called The Haunted House. One time, a preacher went to see if he could put to rest at a house in his settlement. The house had been haunted for about 10 years. Several people had tried to stay there all night, but they always would get scared out by the haunt. So this preacher took his Bible and went to the house. Went on in, built himself a good fire, and lit a lamp. Sat there reading the Bible. Then, just before midnight, he heard something start up in the cellar. Walking back and forth, back and forth. Then it sounded like somebody was trying to scream and got choked off. Then there was a lot of thrashing around and struggling, and finally everything got quiet. The old preacher took up his Bible again. Before he could start reading, he heard footsteps coming up the cellar stairs. He sat watching the door to the cellar, and the footsteps kept coming closer and closer. He saw the doorknob turn, and then, when the door began to open, he jumped up and hollered, "What do you want?" The door shut back easy-like, and there wasn't a sound. The preacher was trembling a little bit, but he finally opened the Bible and read a while. The heck? Cut it out.
I think it's raining.
That's kind of creepy. Did you do that?
No.
Okay, you guys, this isn't actually a freaking setup. That kind of scared me. Anyway, after a while, he opened the Bible and read a while. Then he got up and laid the book on the chair and went to mending the fire. Then the haunt started walking again, and step, step, step up the cellar stairs. The old preacher sat, watching. Cut it out. Watching. He saw the doorknob turn, and the door open. It looked like a young woman. He backed up and said, "Who are you? What do you want?" Oof. The haunt sort of swayed like she didn't know what to do. Then she faded out. The old preacher waited and waited, and when he didn't hear any more noises, he went over and shut the door. He was sweating, trembling all over, but he was a brave man. He thought he'd be able to see it through, so he turned his chair to where... Okay, I swear, if you keep doing that.
I didn't do it.
Yes, you did.
I swear I didn't do it.
Okay.
What?
What?
I don't know. It's just like the perfect time for it.
I know, it really is.
But
anyway,
I really didn't do it. I don't know.
Then the knob slowly turned and the door opened wide. This time the preacher spoke quiet-like. He said, "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, who are you and what do you want?" The haunt came right across the room straight to him and took hold of his coat. It was a young woman about 20 years old. Her hair was torn and tangled, and the flesh was dripping off of her face, so he could see the bones and part of her teeth. Her face, she had no eyeballs, but there was a sort of blue light way back in her eye sockets. And then she had no nose to her face. Then she started talking. It sounded like her voice was coming and going with the wind blowing it. She told how her lover had killed her for her money and buried her in the cellar. She said if the preacher would dig up her bones and bury her properly, she could rest. Then she told him to take the end joint of the little finger from her left hand and lay it in the collection plate at the next church meeting, and he'd find out who had murdered her. And she said, "If you come back here once more after that, you'll hear my voice at midnight, and I'll tell you where my money is hid, and you can give it to the church."
Nice.
The haunt sobbed like she was tired, and she sunk down toward the floor and was gone. The preacher found her bones and buried them in the graveyard. The next Sunday the preacher put the finger bone in the collection plate, and when a certain man happened to touch it, it stuck to his hand. The man jumped up and rubbed and scraped and tore at the bone, trying to get it off. Then he went to screaming like he was going crazy. Well, he confessed to the murder, and they took him on to jail. After the man was hung, the preacher went back to that house one midnight, and the haunt's voice told him to dig under the heart rock. He did, and he found a big sack of money. And where that haunt had held on to his coat, the print of those bony fingers was burned right into the cloth. It never did come out. The frick! Well, that was the end.
Nice.
I like the last line. It never did come out. Okay, you guys, there's no one else on the server. If I could... Okay. Are you doing that?
I swear I'm not doing it.
See, there's no one else on the server. It's just... See, because it would say who joined. There was nobody here before us. This is Itstarzan's world. He owns this world, you guys. Do you want to head outside?
Yeah, it's probably raining.
It is.
What? No, I'm just kidding. I figured it would be.
This is the perfect timing. Wait, did you hear that noise?
Let's see if there's any zombie horses.
Do you hear those noises?
Yeah, it sounds like a bird.
This is fun. I can't believe that happened, you guys. Like, whoa. Let's head back inside before we get struck by lightning or something. You guys, there's like no pressure plate. Those buttons don't do anything. I'll show you. Okay? I'll show you around the table because we weren't doing anything, I promise. See, underneath here, glowstone. I'm not moving all of this carpet, but you know that none of us were touching the carpet when all of that happened. See, he just pushed the button. This is kind of freaking me out, but I'll show you guys underneath here. Unless there actually is some kind of pressure plate that you put down or something.
I didn't.
Okay. I guess I can't really see you doing that because you're kind of a noob with command blocks.
Yeah.
No, nothing underneath here. Anyway, you guys, thanks for watching the video. Please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next episode.